She was accused of wearing a uniform she had not earned and ordered to remove it immediately. She didn't argue, just unbuttoned her jacket and slowly rolled up her sleeve. The whole room froze because ink doesn't lie. A scorched tattoo, a dagger piercing a torn flag with the number D17 below. Only 2 soldiers wore this badge. One died in 2018, and the other was just standing there. Her name was Tessa Moran. She was 41 years old, short in stature, with black hair pulled back into a tight bun and sharp eyes that seemed to see everything but say nothing. She worked quietly in the logistics department, medical supplies, equipment distribution. The same work that keeps the base running, but which no one pays attention to. Nobody knew her past. She wore no insignia, no name tag, only a faded military jacket made of worn-out military gear without stripes or identifying marks. For 3 years, she was part of the background. The woman who restocked medical supplies, organized equipment requests, arrived early and left late, without saying a word to anyone. Most thought she was a civilian contractor, maybe ex-military, or just someone who liked military clothes. On Saturday morning, the base hosted a joint civil-military exercise aimed at interacting with local law enforcement agencies working alongside active-duty military personnel. Tess volunteered to provide temporary logistical support. Nothing unusual. She did this every month. But this time, someone noticed her jacket. Lieutenant Mark Stevens, 24, has just completed officer training. The soldier who strictly followed the rules and expected the same from everyone else. Pointed at Tessa as she carried a supply crate across the training area. Sorry, this is not a standard form. You're not allowed to wear it? Sergeant First Class Rodriguez laughed. Where did you buy this thing? In a military store. Stevens moved closer. His voice became louder. Ma'am, this is a jacket, military property. If you don't serve, you can't wear it. A small circle gathered. Other soldiers, a few civilians, all watched the scene. Staff Sergeant Williams joined in. We need to see identification. This could be theft of military glory. Accusations poured in one after another, each one louder than the last. Each one is becoming more and more certain that they have caught someone pretending to be someone they are not. Tessa stood completely still, did not argue, did not defend herself, did not try to explain herself. She just listened. Her face showed no emotion, no anger, no embarrassment, only patience, as if she had been through this before. Lieutenant Stevens raised his voice. Take off your jacket. This is a direct order. We need to record your details and prepare a written report. The crowd approached and people started taking out their phones. This could have gone viral for the worst possible reason. Tess put down the box of supplies she was carrying and slowly and deliberately reached for the zipper of her jacket. At that moment, there was silence. Silence does not always mean guilt. Sometimes it means respect. Master Sergeant Jackson, the logistics coordinator, pushed his way through the crowd. What's the problem? Stevens turned to face him. Sir, this civilian is wearing unauthorized military clothing. We are conducting an investigation. Jackson looked at Tessa. He worked with her for 3 years. Never had any problems. Nobody asked questions about her past. M, he said formally. If you're not in the service, military regulations prohibit you from wearing this uniform. I need to see your identification. Tessa nodded slowly once, unbuttoned her faded jacket and let it fall to the floor. Underneath, she wore a simple green t-shirt. Nothing special. Nothing that could mark her as military or civilian. But then she did something that made everyone lean forward. She carefully rolled up her left sleeve. Not quickly, not dramatically, but methodically, as if she were showing something sacred. And there on her left bicep was a tattoo unlike anything most of them had ever seen. She was untidy, unattractive, as if burnt, damaged by fire and heat. The image was barely recognizable. A combat dagger piercing a torn American flag, beneath which in military font was written D-17, Delta 17. The crowd fell silent. The wind could be heard in the trees. A radio crackled in the distance. A rapid heartbeat could be heard. Lieutenant Stevens stared at the tattoo. Delta 17 is not the unit's actual designation. Sergeant Rodriguez's voice dropped to a whisper. No, this is the unit that was lost in the LN sector. Fire, everything burned. Secret operation. Master Sergeant Jackson felt his heart sink. He's heard stories of whispers in the NCO club after too much beer, about a logistics unit that was surrounded, about soldiers who died defending a supply depot that officially did not exist. An older voice cut through the silence. Colonel Patricia Hayes exited the observation area. For 28 years of service, she watched the collision from afar. This ink, Anna said, looking slowly at Tessa's hand. Only 2 people were allowed to wear it. The crowd moved even closer. Unit commander and unit medic, Hayes continued. The commander was killed in an incident in the LN sector in 2018 and was posthumously awarded a Bronze Star. She looked straight at Tessa. So you, Tessa, met her gaze. The voice was quiet but clear. Staff Sergeant Tessa Moran, Delta 17, medical support. Presumed killed in action, March 15, 2018. These words hit the crowd like a physical blow. Stevens hesitated, but the report said everyone was dead. The entire unit was destroyed. Tessa's voice remained even. I didn't disappear. I remained silent because no one wanted to remember what we had to do there. She looked around at the faces looking at her. Young faces who had never seen a real fight. People who didn't have to make the decisions she did. This tattoo, she continued, was given to us before our last mission. A sign of dedication to the unit, to each other, and to the mission. Her voice became quieter. 7 of us went in there. I just left. There was silence. Nobody knew what to say. No one knew how to react to the ghost that had just revealed itself. Colonel Hayes took a step forward. Sergeant Moran, why didn't you report? Why didn't you restore your military record? Tessa looked at the tattoo, at the scorched ink that had survived fire and pain. Years of silence, she said, because those who did not survive wore the same sign. I didn't need a parade to remember them. I just had to keep serving. The fire did not erase it, it engraved it. Colonel Hayes ordered the crowd to disperse, but rumors were already spreading throughout the base. Posts appeared on social networks, messages were passed on. By evening, everyone knew the name Tessa Moran, and the real story of Delta 17 began to unfold. It was a secret logistics operation in the LH sector, a forward supply depot supporting special operations in hostile territory. 7 soldiers were isolated, cut off from normal communications, responsible for maintaining weapons, ammunition, medical supplies, and communications equipment for units that officially did not exist. The attack took place at dawn on March 15, 2018. Intelligence failure, security breach. Someone gave away their location. 47 enemy fighters, rockets, mortar fire, small arms from 3 directions. The warehouse was designed to be quickly abandoned in the event of capture. Standard protocol called for the destruction of classified materials and evacuation. But inside were wounded men and women, brought in at night, who could not be moved. Tess was the unit's medic, Staff Sergeant Moran. 29 years old, 5 years of service. She made her decision while the others were getting ready. The evacuation continued, and Tessa remained with them, keeping them alive and stabilizing them. The enemy broke through the perimeter. Tessa's commanding officer, Captain David Kim, died defending the main building. 6 soldiers died in the first 15 minutes. Tess was left alone with 7 wounded soldiers who could not walk, could not fight, and would have died if she had left them. For 3 hours she held the medical station, using any weapons available, moving from window to window and holding off the enemy. When she ran out of ammunition, she made a different decision. The fuel depot was located next to the medical station. Thousands of gallons of aviation fuel, enough to destroy the entire complex. Tessa constructed an improvised explosive device, set the timer, and loaded the wounded into the only remaining vehicle. She had 2 minutes to get them to the evacuation point. The explosion was visible from 15 miles away. Official reports stated that all employees were killed in the explosion. The enemy was defeated. The mission was classified, but Tessa survived with severe burns to her left arm and back, temporary hearing loss, damage to the vocal cords due to smoke inhalation. For several months, she was evacuated to a field hospital under a false name. Medical staff thought she was a local contractor who had been injured in the explosion. By the time her identity was established, the Delta 17 incident had been classified and filed away, never to be accessed by most. The commanders offered her options: total disability, retirement, honorable medical discharge, or a new assignment with a clean service history. She gave up on everyone. "I want to stay," she told the audit committee, "but not as Staff Sergeant Moran. This man died along with my unit. She was offered a position in logistics without a title or official record, just a job that allowed one to serve without recognition." She agreed. For 7 years, she worked quietly, processing supply requests, managing inventory, keeping the machinery running. No one asked about her past. No one questioned her authority. She was just there. Until one Saturday morning, the young soldiers decided to make a scene over her jacket. Lieutenant Stevens found her in the logistics warehouse that evening. "Still working, Sergeant, that is, ma'am. I owe you an apology." Tessa looked up from the tally sheet. "No, it shouldn't. You were doing your job, but I accused you of wearing a uniform you didn't think you deserved." She put the tablet on the table. "You were right to doubt. That's what good soldiers do." Stevens hesitated. "But you saved those soldiers. You're heroes." Tessa's voice was firm. "No, I'm a survivor. That's the difference." She pointed to her tattoo. "Heroes don't return home alone." The next day, a small sign appeared on Tessa's desk. "Delta doesn't forget, and now we don't forget." The logistics department was quietly renamed. No ceremony, no announcement, just a small sign by the door. A department dedicated to those who serve in silence. She didn't ask for recognition, just to be left alone. In the following week, everything changed, and at the same time, remained the same. Tessa continued to work in logistics. Same hours, same tasks, same quiet efficiency. But now as she walked through the base, people looked at her differently. Not as a quiet civilian contractor, not as a woman in a combat jacket, but as Staff Sergeant Tessa Moran, a survivor of Delta 17. She never wore the combat jacket in public again, but her left sleeve, the one that exposed her burned tattoo, was always rolled up when she worked, a reminder not of her service, but of those who never returned home. Private First Class Maria Santos was an 18-year-old newcomer to the base, first assignment after basic training. One afternoon, she found Tessa in the warehouse organizing medical supplies. "M," Robka asked Santos. "Can I ask a question?" Tess looked up. What's on your mind? Fire in the LNG sector. Was it really as bad as they say? Tessa was silent for a long moment, then nodded once. But it was not the flame that stayed with me, Anana said quietly. And silence after. Santos didn't understand what silence meant. When you lose people, you really lose them, Tessa explained. The world is becoming quieter. Their voices disappear. Their laughter fades away. The things they could have said, the jokes they could have told, it all disappears. Tessa touched the tattoo. The ink is burnt, damaged, but it is still there, and so is its memory. Do you regret keeping silent all these years? Tess thought about it. I regret that it took someone questioning my right to wear that jacket for their story to be told. They deserved more than my silence. A month later, a small memorial was erected near the base chapel. 7 names, 7 faces, 7 soldiers killed in an operation that officially never happened. At the bottom was a simple inscription. They served in silence. They died with honor. They are remembered. Tessa was present at the initiation ceremony, standing in the background and saying nothing. But when the names were read and Captain David Kim's name was heard, she gave a military salute. Clear, precise, respectful. The very same salute that she waited 7 years to give. After the ceremony, Colonel Hayes approached her. Sergeant Morin, would you consider returning to active duty with reinstatement of full rank? Tessa shook her head. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, ma'am. She looked at the memorial. Someone must remember them. Someone must keep their history alive. And someone must ensure that the supplies continue without recognition, without noise. Hayes understood, as did Delta 17, as did Delta 17. She didn't need a rank. She carried memory. Some serve without applause. Some burn out and choose not to show their faces again. But sometimes the scars they bear speak louder than any uniform or rank. Tessa Morant didn't need medals, didn't need parades, didn't need her name on a plaque or her story in a history book. She needed her silence to matter. And when her right to serve was questioned, she did not argue, did not shout, did not demand recognition. She simply rolled up her sleeve, because some truths don't need words, some stories don't need to be told, some heroes don't need recognition. They just need to be allowed to do what heroes do: serve, protect, remember. The young soldiers who doubted her that day learned something more valuable than military rules. They learned that heroism doesn't always come in the right form, that service doesn't always come with the right paperwork, that sometimes the most important people are the ones you never notice until you need them. Tessa's tattoo told a story that 7 years of silence could not erase. A story of sacrifice, of loss, of choosing to bear the burden of memory over the glory of survival. In a world that demands recognition for every act of service, she chose invisibility. In a culture that celebrates individual achievement, she chose collective memory. She wore her scar not as a badge of honor, but as a promise kept. A promise to soldiers who will never return home. A promise that their sacrifice will never be forgotten, even if their story is never told. The tattoo said it all. If this story stays with you,